is a secret society founded at Yale University in 1832. The Bonesmen, as they're called, choose their initiates just like Freemasonry. In fact, the only way one can join the Skull and Bones is if one is invited by inside members. Every year, only 15 members are allowed to enter, which is very mysterious because many popular figures throughout history have been members of this secret society. 3 famous United States presidents have been Bonesmen, such as William H. Taft, George H.W. Bush, and his son George W. Bush. Many U.S. senators are also Bonesmen, such as Prescott Bush, John Kerry, John Chafee, Jonathan Bingham, David Boren, John Sherman Cooper, Chauncey Depew, William Maxwell Evarts, James L. Buckley, Robert A. Taft, Frank Bosworth Brandegee, John Hines, and John Patton Jr. were all members of the Skull and Bones. 5 U.S. governors, 3 congressmen, 5 Supreme Court justices, Pierre J., the first chairman of the New York Federal Reserve, and George L. Harrison, the president of the New York Federal Reserve, were all Skull and Bonesmen. The Bushes have long been pillars of the infamous Skull and Bones Society, based in a windowless mausoleum known as the Tomb, alongside the campus at Yale University at New Haven in Connecticut. Every year, 15 bloodline students are initiated into the Skull and Bones Society, and the ratio of Skull and Bones initiates who end up in positions of power in politics, banking and business, media, and intelligence agencies in the United States, in front of camera and behind the scenes, is massive. Bones building is known as the Tomb, being decorated in skulls, bones, swords, knives, armor, death, blood, and darkness. It is here that they perform their bizarre and sexually ritualistic initiations. Sometimes, ear-piercing screams can be heard coming from this building. In 2001, ABC News, along with the New York Observer, filmed an imitation throat-cutting ritual being performed by the Bonesmen.
The videotape provides a
Other Skull and Bonesmen ransacked the grave at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. They took turns to stand guard while others robbed the grave and took away artifacts in Geronimo's skull. This was taken to the Skull and Bones headquarters at Yale, where it is used in their sick rituals and ceremonies. This horrible story is told in an international history of the Skull and Bones Society and was quoted to Ned Anderson, the tribal chairman of the San Carlos Apache tribe, when he was negotiating to have Geronimo's remains returned to the tribe's custody. A 1989 article in the New Yorker said, one Bonesman recalled during the early 70s seeing perhaps 30 skulls, not all of them human, scattered about the tomb at Yale. This is the mentality of the people running our world. Every Skull and Bonesman has been incredibly successful and put at great powers in our government. President Bush tapped 5 Bonesmen, including William Donaldson, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, to join his administration. John Kerry, class of 1966, became Senator and Secretary of State. Henry Luce, the founder of Time magazine, Life, Fortune, Home, and Sports Illustrated, was a Bonesman. General Manager of the New York Times, Amory Howe Bradford, was a Bonesman, class of 1934, and married Carol Warburg Rothschild. Percy Rockefeller, class of 1900, was a wealthy businessman and sat on directors' boards for many corporations. Richard Gow, president of George Bush's Zapata Oil Company, was a Bonesman, class of 1955. Alexandra Robbins, in a CBS interview, stated, "They do have many individuals in influential positions, and that's why this is something that we need to know about." The Skull and Bones, being interleaked with many government branches, is also connected to the CIA. Many powerful Bonesmen in our government were very much involved in the CIA. The Central Intelligence Agency is widely known for its shadowy acts and strange positions it holds in government power. Many Bonesmen have graduated with CIA and intelligence community jobs waiting for them too. F. Truby Davison, Howard Weaver, William Sloane Coffin Jr., V. Van Dyne, James Buckley, Bill Buckley, Hugh Cunningham, Hugh Wilson, Reuben Holden, Charles R. Walker, Robert D. French, Archibald MacLeish, Dino Pionzio, William and McGeorge Bundy, Richard Moore, and George Bush are all Bonesmen with U.S. intelligence agency jobs. The Skull and Bones Society, along with the Bush family, put illegal drugs such as heroin and cocaine on the streets of the US and the rest of the world. The Illuminati families in America and Britain launched an international drug trade and still maintain it today. Through their power in government agencies, they wipe out opposition, and this is exactly what you see when you watch a big drug bust on the news. Controlling the drug trade is a huge step to gaining financial power and is also a key factor in keeping parts of the world poor, unhealthy, and in poverty. The Skull and Bones Society has branches of power throughout the government, and Bushes were just one of the biggest families to be involved in the drug trade. The Skull and Bones Society is owned by the Russell Trust, an organization controlled by the Russells, a drug-running bloodline family. They flew the Skull and Bones flag on their ships as they transported drugs from the British Empire, from Turkey to China, and elsewhere during the Opium Wars of the 19th century. The Skull and Bones is an ancient Illuminati symbol used in its sacrificial rituals and secret language, not least by the Knights Templar. The Skull and Bones is a very well-hidden secret society that has infiltrated many positions of power in the US government. One of their greatest methods of manipulation is the bipartisan Republican-Democrat system, in which they present two political figures from two different parties, and the American people have an election where they vote for which candidate they like more. This is clearly giving the illusion of choice to the population. They control both parties. They control the entire system. Yet I am supposed to believe that just by voting for one of their controlled puppets, that somehow everything is going to change? What are the chances that out of 300 million people, the two elected candidates would be related and both members of the same secret society? This is not a coincidence. It is reality. The Skull and Bones have taken big positions in power and have paved the way for the New World Order. They control both parties of the political system and have members in different sections of the government. In a 1992 interview with reporter Sarah McClendon, George H.W. Bush stated, "If the American people ever find out what we, the Bushes, have done, they would chase us down the street."
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
And I'll tell you why. I'll show you. In every Masonic lodge, this right here is the Masonic tracing board. It is in every Masonic lodge. Some form or fashion, they have a picture of this. Notice that at the top is east, not north. On a compass, up at the top is north, due north, not in a Masonic lodge. The altar always faces east.
So there's three with one missing, it looks like. Is this the
I don't know exactly.
north, south, west, and the east is missing, or?
No, that would be the east,
That would be the east?
because that's north.
Right.
Right. I don't know why that is missing, actually.
I asked him why there were only 3 lights at the altar, and he said he wasn't too sure why, but there are 3 because one represents the east, one represents the west, one represents the south, but in Masonry, the north is the place of darkness. And of course, according to the Bible tells us that the north is where God resides.
God is from the north. The Creator is from the north. The altar is not facing Him. It's facing east, where man was thrown out of the garden. Where does that come from? Genesis 3:24. So He drove out the man, and He placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubs and flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. And that's what's really going on here, is basically trying to get back in the Garden of Eden another way. But also notice, back to the tracing board, when you read from left to right, you have NEWS, news, and it is code, because if you read it on a compass, it doesn't read correctly from left to right. Only in the Masonic tracing board or in a Masonic lodge do you get that reference from left to right, NEWS, news. So just wanted to point that out. And also, it was also in one of the Olympics a couple of years ago. The stage was newspaper, and they also had an octopus as one of the mascots used in that show. tentacles everywhere, the symbolism of the octopus reaching out all over the world, same thing. Is putting a stamp out there of we're in control of this artist, Taylor Swift. We're letting you know, we have her, what she's doing, her videos she's putting out, gorgeous, look what you made me do, and now this one. I mean, it's pretty much right in a row telling you something. Look what you made me do. Are you ready for it, gorgeous? I mean, that's pretty much telling you how they use the titles to tell you a story separately of what's going on. So, lastly, before I play the video, there's 3 versions of this CD. There's the standard, there's a special version volume 2. Notice that the numbers that are used in the special versions is 72. Now, anybody that's followed or seen any of my videos, I've told you that the pyramid on the back of your dollar bill is an uncompleted temple. Eye of Lucifer, Horus, whatever you want to say, on the back of your US dollar bill. So 72 is code word for 666. Depending on who you ask, they'll understand. And what I mean by that is 66 add a 6. The world teaches you 66 add a 6, you get 72. Ask someone in the know, Freemasonry, a 33rd degree Mason, ask him 66 add a 6. He'll tell you 666. He'll just add the 6. The statement is the same. The question is the same. 66 add a 6. But the way you're taught to look at it and perceive it, you get a whole different answer. So it's no accident that they've used 72 on her special versions of these other CDs. And it has to do with the temple. It has to do with what the very secret, the inner sanctum of Freemasonry is about. Building human temples. Building a stairway to heaven another way.